Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody. My name is Manan Puri, and I am the co-founder of Strategy for GMAT. I am also from the class of 2013 at ISB. Today, we will be covering the R2 admissions process, talking about the essays, as well as the R1 admission lessons so far because it's still ongoing. So there are always lessons to be learned there. Also, we will cover any questions that you may have and any tips and tricks that our panelists have to offer. So today I have with me Piyush, who's from ISB class of 2013, and Ayushi, who's from class of 2018, and I'm from 13. So we have the whole spectrum to cover in terms of uh, uh, an oldie like me and a youngster like Ayushi, and Piyush is somewhere in the middle. And the idea here is that they will share their experiences and talk about how to approach the admission. So before we get started, I would request Piyush to introduce yourself, your experience, and background with everybody.
Yeah. Hi, people. My name's Piyush. I graduated ISB in 2016. Before ISB, I had like a mixed experience in digital marketing and analytics. I'd graduated as an engineer in 2011 from IIT Roorkee. Started off in IT at Oracle. Then in 2013, when the e-commerce boom had just started in India, I switched to digital marketing. Spent a couple of years there. Went into ISB with a very hard focus on product and marketing, and as if with a lot of people at ISB, discovered that I had a flair for vendor management of all things and negotiations, hard business. I joined Cloudtail, which is an e-commerce seller, after ISB and worked in fashion. Went back after 1.5 years to Amazon as in digital marketing, which was my core competency, but wanted to do something which involved meeting out people, interacting with accounts. So now I handle media partnerships and content partnerships for Amazon as part of the consumer marketing team. So 3.5 years there. So that's where I am right now.
Thank you, Piyush. Interesting journey pre and post ISB, and like most people, goals change
Yeah,
during the year, right?
yeah.
Okay, Ayushi.
Hi everyone, this is Ayushi here. I did my bachelor's in mathematics honors, so just the non-engineering field here, and graduated from Jadavpur University, Calcutta in 2015. Went on to join a fintech firm, startup, which was into algo trading. We were making strategies for the US stock market. Had a lot of fun there, coding and researching on various strategies. Then got into ISB, class of 18. Completely with an open mind, thinking I could get into marketing, ops, etc., and just thought of myself as someone who wanted to be in hardcore finance. So ended up majoring in finance and strategy. Got the opportunity to work as a co-fund manager for IDBI Asset Management. Was there for 1.5 years. Just thought of myself as someone who does not want to be in hardcore finance now and wants to go back to the fintech field. So made a journey into product management at Paytm Money. I've been with this company for over a year now and trying to make investments easy for the entire world. So yeah, that's about me.
Thank you, Ayushi. And I remember our chat during ISB when we were there for resume review. So
Yeah,
a different journey from there also. Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Uh, Okay, so we'll start off today with the essay analysis. So there are three essays which we have to, write. Two in case you're not a reapplicant, three in case you are. We'll cover in brief in terms of how to cover all of them and answer all of them, and then talk about R2 lessons, R1 lessons learned, as I said. So let's pick up the first essay, which is essentially why you. This was there last year as well in terms of asking if one more person needs to be added to the class of 20XX, should it be you and why? This year, it's sort of different, but the flavor is still the same. They are now asking for that one trait and substantiated with examples which will enhance your chances to become a successful leader. From previous years, you could highlight two or three traits or two or three facets of your personality. This year, it is just focusing on one and plural, remember, examples to highlight and back that trait up. So that makes it a little more trickier. Now, the bit that we need to focus on is this is not a leadership trait. That is, you're not saying you're a leader, but it has enhanced your potential to become a leader. Now, the key thing to note here is that leadership is an ongoing process, right? And certain traits will help you get there in some way or the other. Now, what you have to do is first take a step back and introspect. What is that one trait that defines you? Which is the most important part of the process. You could ask your peers, you could ask your people who are close to you, your family members, etc., etc., um, on around things that are unique to you. Of course, don't ask your parents or mother who'll always be saying that you're the best and nothing else matters, but ask people who are closely working with you and know you inside out, and then resonate with your own experiences in terms of whether it works or not. Then think about certain examples from your life, professional or personal, which impact the person you are today and which demonstrate this trait. Now, that is a key element. You have to first understand the trait and then back that up with examples. Now, the trait, for example, could be you're resilient, in the sense that you fall down 7 times, you get up 8 times. Or you could be having a lot of perseverance, where you go at it in terms of achieving your goals and you're never giving up. It could be entrepreneurial spirit, it could be empathy, it could be anything else which is an intangible trait, but demonstrated across your life in various experiences. The second bit to highlight, as I said, is the examples. Now, these could be personal examples or professional examples. For example, in case of a professional one, you were essentially working on a project, and the client gave very negative feedback, and the impact on the project and your company would have been huge. The team was obviously not feeling better about it, etc., etc. So, for example, you pepped up the team, drove things forward, and then eventually got the project home. That is, for example, a particular example. The other could be you failed a couple of times in chartered accountancy, for example, and then you studied hard, you bounced back, you completed a chartered accountancy, you completed a CFA, and then you are now teaching people uh, concepts of CA or CFA, for example. It is a trait about bouncing back. So that is something that you should focus on, whether the trait exists. The other thing is, how do I back it up with examples? The third most important element of this essay is around how does this trait add value to the class at ISB? So you're great, no, kudos on that, but so what? How does it impact the peers? How does it impact the class? How does it impact the brand ISB? So make sure you research a bit around the clubs that you can possibly lead, the events that you can possibly lead. This also, will give you certain brownie points from the adcom in terms of the research that you have shown about the school, and that shows that you are very keen to get in. You have made your choices after considering everything that the school offers, and here are the three things that I will be able to do based on what I have right now. A typical structure of this essay would be introduction of the trait and how is it important for a leader to have. Then talking about certain examples. So those examples could be, say, 100, words each. Then finally, back it up in terms of how will you add value to the class. Anything else you want to add here, Ayushi or Piyush? Ayushi, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was in mute. So, yeah, you are right in terms of, when you want to bring out that particular trait, it is very important to understand, that ISB itself gets a picture that you have actually researched on the school. You have an idea as to why do you want to do it, because it's not merely an MBA application, but understanding why ISB in particular. And it is very important to actually sit through and give yourself that introspection. That was a very valid point that you made, that, don't go to your mother or someone, but when you work with colleagues, or when the friends that you sit with, they actually point out certain important traits that would help you, and that is something unique to you, which is not in others. Because it's very easy for us to not know our own traits. So I think that this is what is the most difficult part to get out in the essay. Once you have that in place, of course, the structure that you mentioned would really help in, getting that essay together. So that is the issue, that is something that I faced when I was writing my essay. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thanks, Ayushi. Uh, Now moving on to the second essay. Piyush, do you want to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So thanks, Manan. So essay one, you'll notice, is about why you. So ISB asking the candidate, why should we take you, and what can you do for ISB? While the second essay switches gears and asks, what can ISB do for you? So it'll ask for it. It's a very typical MBA question. It's an introspection MBA question which asks, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? How can ISB help you? Now, breaking this question down into these three parts. Now, when you start thinking about this, the first thing to think is, what is a short-term goal? What is it all about? What defines a good short-term goal? Now, in the horizon, or just putting it a little more nuance to it, a little more tangibility to it, a short-term goal is within 3 to 5 years of graduating ISB. It's very near term. As a result of it, it needs to be super sharp. So this is the goal that you enter ISB, and it shapes your MBA choices. From everything to your major at ISB to what you kind of focus in terms of electives, what extracurriculars you pick. So it shapes a lot of your decisions in your B school journey. So it needs to be sharp. Now, a long-term goal is probably double or triple that horizon. It's probably decade or more out of ISB. Now, nobody's seen the future. We don't know what 10 years later would look like. Now, in this case, it is important to get the area of interest right. So in this case, uh, then soft skills become important. Inevitably, in your MBA journey, after 10 years or so, for example, you would be leading a team. More often than not, then soft skills become important, leadership skills become important, organizational behavior skills become important. Now, the final peg in this question is, how can ISB help you? Now, most of us that applied at ISB did not come with a blank slate. We already have like a skill set that we have. So when you look at your goal, let's say you look at your short-term goal, maybe it needs, break it down in terms of skill sets. Maybe it needs 10 to 15 skill sets. And it is more often than not, you'll have 5 or 10 of them. ISB's job is to make sure that you catch up with these remaining skills. It provides that bridge that helps you hit that short-term goal. Similarly, in terms of the long-term goal, when you break it down, you'll see that you need maybe like 15, 20 skills. Some of them that you have, some of which ISB will help you. Now, how does ISB help you? Now, what ISB does is can be roughly bucketed into three buckets. One is in terms of its own curriculum. Uh, Second is extracurriculars. The third is the network. Now, when I talk about curriculum, it is stuff that is mandatory. It's not voluntary. So stuff that you'll inevitably take up: classroom, the faculty, courses, cases that will happen in the classroom, anything that happens, the peer discussion that will happen within the confines of the classroom, and the assignments that you'll take up, tests that you'll give, and any other sessions, guest lectures that will happen, that is non-voluntary. Extracurriculars are the voluntary stuff that you'll end up doing. So the case competitions, the events that you'll participate or lead in, the clubs that you participate or lead, uh, the student bodies that you're part of. Finally, and I can't emphasize this enough, the network. Now, ISB is this unique campus where you get people not just across the width of industry experience and educational experience, also there is vertical diversity in terms of seniority of candidates that come in, and they're in the same classroom. So you get, not only get like a wide eye of a very wide perspective, you also get different depths at which people approach that problem. More often than not, you also have people from industries that you're looking to join after ISB, and that's a huge bonus. So when you're writing this essay, a good practice that I find is, for your short term or long term goal, use any tool that you want, build a persona of what that person is after 2 or 3 years after ISB, or 5 or 10 or 15 years after ISB. Work backwards, deconstruct it in terms of skills that is needed to hit that goal, and then ISB's contribution, just bucket it under these three categories. How can the network help? The network helps in terms of peer-to-peer learning, in terms of just learning from your friends over informal forums. Extracurriculars can help put in what you've learned into the classroom in very simulated, very near world or business scenarios. Then the curriculum itself, because the pedagogy is great, the faculty is great, they're respective experts in their fields that actually come and teach at ISB. The cases that you go through, and then even then the diversity plays a part, because a cases is gets like the light is shined from various angles of industry that you don't get anywhere else. And finally, of course, the rigor of the curriculum is something that ISB is known for. So you get, so basically you break down the contributions of ISB into these three buckets, and then this you say that, hey, this will add to my existing skill set. These are the 5 or 10 things that ISB will kind of contribute to, and then of course then I'll hit my goal. Manan, any other points on this?
Thanks, Piyush. I think it's very important, as you said. Again, introspection here also is very important. A couple of things I would like to highlight. One is your goals should be somewhat realistic as well. ISB, like most B schools, also focuses on employability as one of the factors when it shortlists you. So if your goals are way misaligned from what you come from, say after 3, 4, or 5 years of experience, that is a red flag that comes in. So for example, if you have 6 years of experience in investment banking, and now you say that I want to switch to FMCG and do advertising or sales, it is a red flag that it might not happen, because there will be people from the background which are there, and they will not be able to get placed. So realistic goals important. So second bit is the network and professors, etc. You should cover all of these points definitely, but make it personal in terms of how it will help in your journey. It is not an advertisement that you're doing for ISB, it is how is it relevant for you. So again, research helps here. If you're talking about moving from a developer role to a product manager role, then pick out certain courses from ISB's website. Look in there in terms of whatever they're offering, the kind of professors, the kind of alums that are there as product managers after ISB, and whatever their journeys inspire you. Mention all of that. And again, think 2 steps ahead. Expect these questions to be asked in the interview as well. So it's not about just mentioning it there, it is also about being able to know 2 layers deep on whatever you've written, so that the alums who are taking the interviews are able to ask you, and then you're able to give a structured response there. So that was on essay 2. Now coming on to the reapplicant essay, in case you are a reapplicant. So Ayushi, would you want to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely, Manan. So, what important thing comes out of ISB even having a reapplicant essay is that, ISB is actually a very student friendly institute. It really wants you to encourage, that, it's okay if it didn't happen the first time, apply again with us. But this is also a very important essay in terms of someone taking an advantage of actually showing in more than one trait. So the first essay that we had, right, why you, sort of tells you that, okay, fine, these are the qualities in me. This is another essay, additional essay for them to actually highlight another quality in terms of the growth that they've had from the previous application to now. Now, what is very important in this essay is that, of course, it is an opportunity to showcase what all other traits you have in it, but it is very important not to dilute it. Like, this essay is not supposed to be taken in terms of giving in a couple of traits about myself, but actually emphasizing as to how I have grown as an individual in terms of my professional and personal traits, and how I feel that this is really important for me as a student, and even as a future alum of ISB. By future alum, I mean, in terms of me being taking up a leadership position, and how I have actually gone into that introspection mode. And again, another thing which is very important to be highlighted in essays is try to be very crisp in what you want to do. Because, beating around the bush here and there that, I have done this also, I have put in this course, I have researched on this, I have worked on this, doesn't really help you. What really helps you is emphasize as to I am someone who's clear as to what I have wanted to do. These are the shortcomings that I've seen in myself, and this is what I have tried to improve on. So I personally feel that this is an essay that someone can take a huge advantage of if they are a reapplicant. Manan, Piyush, if you would want to highlight any other points in this.
Piyush?
Yeah. So in this case, right, as Ayushi's pointed out, it is very important to show growth across the time that you've submitted your reapplication, and be very pointed about it. Don't beat around the bush in terms of uh, and the starting step here is to figure out what's important for ISB. So recency and relevancy. So in terms of when you pick out examples and traits, make sure that it's super relevant to what ISB actually cares for. And to deconstruct what ISB cares for, you need to do your research. So all these three essays, one key feature is that apart from your own life experiences, it should reflect that you've done your research. And that's also a very, very strong point that comes out. And when the adcom actually looks at it, that you've done your due diligence, because one, actually they're trying to make sure that this is, you are a good fit for ISB and ISB is also a good fit for you. So they're doing you a service at times. So you have to make sure that especially with reapplicants, right, it it does not uh, at times help to rehash the same points that they did in the previous essay and come out strongly, and then increase the degree of success in the same traits that they were highlighting last year. Maybe it is horizontal growth as well. There is another aspect of your application that has come across. Do be careful around making this essay super pointed, not beating around the bush, and highlighting a trait that's actually very, very important to ISB.
That's a very valid point. I think the key one here is it's not just the school choosing you, it's you choosing the school as well. Uh, and it is applicable to all essays and even before you start your application itself. And in reapplicant essay, I think it is about either a professional achievement that has happened in the past 1 year, your scores have improved, a promotion, any new hobby which you have taken up and which enhances your personality and profile. All of that can be highlighted here. And again, it's important to also highlight why you think you could not get through the last time. There are various avenues you can reach out to alums, reach out to us for that matter. There are people who do the ding analysis for free, there are people who charge for it. We do it for free, FII. And then reach out to ISB as well, in some sense, and they're happy to provide feedback. So uh, and then you can start working on your application and that essay. So uh, that was it on the essay analysis. I hope it helped. Now, the second part of the agenda today is the R1 lessons learned so far. So, just for context, R1 is still not over. The deadline for application submission was 20th of September. However, about 3 weeks before the deadline, ISB announced that due to the pandemic and people not being able to take the GMAT or the GRE at test centers or online because of various reasons, you could submit your application with everything else, essays, recommendation, and application form, and submit your scores by 31st of October. Now, what that did is one, the number of applications increased a lot because people who were thinking of applying in R2 and were thinking of taking the GMAT or GRE in mid of October, they sort of fast tracked their application process, which is not recommended, but they did that and applied by 20th. So the number of applications went up. Typically, for any year, we say that R2 is more competitive compared to R1. This year, R1 became a lot more competitive compared to previous years. Second thing which ISB has done is these are rolling interviews and now announced a few admits as rolling admits as well. So, for example, the folks who got interviewed as recent as last weekend have also received an admit, and there were people who were interviewed way back in mid of October are still waiting for the results. So one key lesson here is that nobody is out of the game until you get that email, right? So for the current applicants watching, that's my whole message here. For the R2 applicants, I think few themes have come out. One is ISB is focusing on a lot of impetus on the job achievements and the application form, the way you've written it. So it's not something which is any other form. It is a precursor to your essays. So adcom already has a view of your profile before they reach the essays. If you look at the form, you first have to mention about your job achievements, your job responsibilities, etc., etc., and then the essays come in. So the adcom already has a view about it. It was applicable last year as well, but it has become a lot more important this year also. Second thing that has come out is, at least from the admits so far, the GMAT and GRE scores are on the upward trend. Now, when I say upward, it does not mean a 730 or a 740, but by and large, it is hovering around a 690 plus or a 325 plus range so far. Now, it could mean that there are few people that they're waiting for, and they will essentially look at those profiles later on. But that's the current theme. So if you're looking at applying this year and have not taken in a GMAT or GRE yet, focus on getting that high score. Again, it's not applicable for everybody, but that's the general trend. Uh, the third thing is, essays in terms of being contextual have become a lot more important. For example, uh, in pandemic, people's plans have changed. In this current realm, people are not looking for higher education because they are worried what might happen. But on the contrary, the applications are increasing. So it is important to have the essays vetted and checked by multiple people, including alums, including various seniors who have been from different B schools. That has become a lot more important because the whole process is a little more competitive at the end of the day, right? So what you cannot change are your acads. What you cannot change are your test scores so far. If you've taken the GMAT, what you cannot change is your number of years of experience. But what you can change is the way you project it, and the way you project your essays and your goals also. So those were the few lessons. Again, round two for now, ISB is not looking to extend the deadline. So make sure your scores are in before the 10th of January. And there might be an R3, considering that's again my perspective. ISB has not announced. So there might be an R3, but don't bank upon it. Anything else you would like to add, Piyush, Ayushi, in terms of the trends that you've been seeing being on both sides of the table this year?
Uh, so it is. I mean, it is a little uh, chaotic in a way. In sense that the candidates have to be uh, constantly vigilant about what ISB is doing. Please do tune in to the ISB official website. Make sure that any questions that you have, make sure you get them from the right channels, because at times like this, speculation can run rife. So you make sure that you get your data and your reports from the correct people. Also, at the same time, I think ISB has done a pretty good job in terms of coping with the sudden changes, sudden and unannounced changes in terms of what the pandemic has brought. It is for R1, I feel, just make sure that you keep an eye on the results. If you have like people that have basically applied there, and you know people around that, and you're planning to apply for R2, do get a perspective of what their experience is like. It's a very recency is very very important at times. So do get that advantage as well sometimes. Ayushi, any other points?
Yeah, like you mentioned, of course, it's chaotic, but at the same time, for the R2 applicants, Manan made a very valid point. Try to get your essays vetted as much as possible by the alums or maybe some other B school applicants, B school people who've been there, because at the end of the day, your interviews would also be taken by the alums as well. So there is a thought process in mind that alums look at when in terms of essays or your profile, so that might benefit you a lot. Other than that, I think Piyush and Manan, you've covered all of it. So.
Right. So we'll start off with the Q&A. There have been a lot of questions that have come in already, and then we received a few questions as part of the registration process as well. So I will keep on asking them, and and then point it to both of you and answer a few as well. So few, let's pick up from the chat box. So there are a couple of questions around the reapplicant essay. So let me address them first, and then we'll go to the others. So, how much can one harp on the improved GMAT score in the reapplicant essay? That's one question, and the related one is, can we showcase an improvement in GMAT score in the reapplicant essay? I heard that the interviewer is not informed about the GMAT score. Will showcasing improvement be a problem? Okay, so the first question is, yes, you can mention the GMAT score improvement, yes, but there has to be something else which led to your downfall. It can't only be the GMAT score. It could be whether the interview was not done properly. It could be certain essays were not written properly, or the profile itself was not done well. Now, the other aspect is, if you applied to say R3 last year and you are now applying to R2 this year, it's almost a year's gap. Now, there has to be something else that has improved in your profile, whether it was a new project, whether it was a new initiative that you have taken. You can always mention that, because that has changed since the last application. Whether it was a promotion or anything else, you can mention all of that. Right now, it is okay to mention the GMAT score in the reapplicant essay, because yes, you're right. The alums do not have access to the GMAT or GRE scores. However, it is a point of improvement, and you can definitely mention it. ISB does not prohibit you from mentioning it in the essay. ISB is just not taking it and showing the scores to the alums who are interviewing, who are the interviewers at that point in time. So that's perfectly fine. You can do that. And Abhishek, ding analysis is basically an analysis on your application and your essays and the interview performance last year, in terms of why and how you could not get through. So, as I said, certain people charge money for this, certain people do it for free. Alums obviously will do it for free, because it's all about giving it back, and you can always reach out to the outcomes as well with your application number, etc. Okay. A question that we received from the registration form was around, how is ISB as a school for product management, and somebody who wants to move to product management, how can MBA help? Now, Ayushi, although your plans were not to get into product management right at the start, but you're here. So, if you can throw some light in terms of, A, is it necessary for a product manager to have an MBA? And if you are an MBA, how has that helped you in the process?
Okay. So first thing, no, not necessary to have an MBA. I have a lot of colleagues, and I've seen around also people not having an MBA degree and being great product managers. But it's about what a degree is helpful for in any role, right? So when you do an MBA, it gives you a perspective about how the businesses in general are functioning. Because as a PM, at the end of the day, you are responsible for the revenue coming into the picture, as to what is the business model, what is the priority for the company. So personally, I feel, of course, this adds value that you understand as to all the functionings of the company. Number one. Second, because at the end of the day, it's all about stakeholder management, right? When you get into an MBA and when you're talking to your peers, or when you're sitting in those classes and understanding as to how do you manage different people in different walks of life, and in terms of your seniors, juniors, that also really helps. So it's about understanding how that MBA would add value to your PM role. I personally felt that going to ISB, even though I do not have any plans of being a product manager at that time, so definitely the courses that I took were nothing related to PM. But I really feel that that really helped me in terms of getting the holistic picture, because that is really important at the end of the day.
Yeah. Piyush, anything you want to add on this?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because I went into ISB with a product role in mind. So it is basically, and when I graduated out, I wanted to do Gen Man now. So basically, the idea of an MBA is to make you a specialized generalist. So that is basically, it gives you access to bits and pieces of all aspects to how to run the business. Because in due time, right? So it is when we graduate from our undergraduate, it is the tools that are important. once you're on the other side, once you're a postgrad, you're an MBA, and you're running a business, you're running a part of a business, the tools are not important. The outcome is important. And with increasing softwares and automation coming in, it is the guy or the girl that is seeing the bigger picture that becomes the driving force. That's really important. So that is what an MBA teaches you. So in terms of a product manager, if you look at what a product manager does, as Ayushi said, they're basically owners of a particular experience, which it can be an internal facing experience or an external facing experience, but you need to have the skills to look at the problem from all angles. So if you have a blind spot with respect to maybe even something as far removed as negotiation, maybe you will not be able to negotiate with your software developers for timelines. So it is an MBA definitely helps. However, as with a lot of things, it's not an absolute requirement. There are people that have innate talents with this, and they do it at work. They develop it on their own time. So you get examples of people that are in automatically, or maybe they've developed their skills from other experiences. But an MBA kind of turbocharges it, so it accelerates that skill acquisition.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You multitask so much and interact with so many people. One tenet, at least, I'm not a product manager and far from it, is what I see is it is the ability to connect with different stakeholders and get things done. And MBA probably teaches you that a lot more than maybe any other course which is specialized in some sense. Okay. The other question we've received here from Kshitiz is, uh, what do you think about the DHM module that ISB has started? Don't you think it compromises the overall experience? Uh, so this was introduced as a result of the pandemic, obviously. This year for the class of 21, which is, the class that is currently studying, they started that out sometime in July or so, and it continued up until sometime in October, including their terms. The idea was not to stop the experience. The idea was to continue the learning experience, and ISB had done a great job. Again, I have been on both sides. I've attended, and also, and Piyush also has been taking a lot of such sessions as part of the DHM. The only difference obviously is around the fact that you're not in person, but everything else has gone on track. So for example, uh, the GSB elections, the graduate student board, the student committee elections happened during this online mode. One or two terms happened, the orientation happened, and everything else happened. And now the current class is already on campus. Next year, and in the upcoming years, ISB has said that the DHM will be there, but the duration will sort of come down. Next year, the current plan is, again, we don't know about pandemic, but the program will sometime start in June, and you'll get to be on campus by the first week of September. And then there are 9 months on campus. So it's a good blend of online and offline learning that will happen. And what it also gives you is maybe a bit more flexibility in terms of managing some other work requirements, etc. as well. So it won't compromise the experience in terms of the learning that you will get from concepts, etc., etc. But as everybody says, there is no difference in, no comparison in being on campus versus taking things online. Things will definitely get better for the guys who are trying to get in now, because hopefully the vaccine is out, and there's a lot more time that you can spend on campus. So that's my short and sweet answer on that one. Another question we've received is around, and we're getting it all along. Is this a good time to go for an MBA? Considering there is recession, GDP contracting, and across the board there are layoffs happening, etc., etc. So, is it a time to go for higher studies? So, Piyush, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I am like I did my under when like I finished my undergraduate when the economy was kind of recovering from the 2008 recession, and I know for a fact when uh, it bounces back strong. So everything looks up. So by the time this current batch of applicants will graduate, it'll be 2022. So hopefully we'll see the same kind of enthusiasm that we saw in the market and economy at that point of time. Uh, 2013 is when the e-com boom happened. Like that's 2 years after I graduated. So 22 hopefully is also like a very strong, will be a very strong year for recovery. Also, you have like business cycles, right? So in terms of innovation, so a lot of these jobs, a lot of these industries, a lot of these companies that are in the fray did not exist in India about 10 years ago, right? So it happens in cycles. So it is that cycle is due again in terms of 22 23. I think it's a very good time to go in for higher studies. Make sure that you have the right skills to be part of the workforce of 2022. uh, Also in terms of because the teaching, the skills, etc., will be taught in a way that is more new world friendly. By that I mean is it will accompany, it will include the post COVID reality. So whatever ISB is going to kind of teach and in my experience it is very dynamic, the course curriculum itself, because it is at times 50-60% depending on the professors and the peers that you learn from. The curriculum that you are going to face in as class of 22 will also make you ready and keep you ready for the post COVID realities of the world. So I personally think it's a good time to get in into an MBA program.
Thanks, Piyush. Ayushi, welcome back. Any thoughts on this one?
Uh, so personally, of course, when I graduated, there was no recession as such, but what I have read, etc., right? Once that recession period comes in, and like Piyush pointed out, when the economy starts, starts to bounce back, you need to be at a space where you can actually take opportunity of, that thing that comes forward. And you'll usually see that a lot of it comes on the east side, where, a lot of jobs are coming up and people have the opportunity to go and grab that. So I personally feel that, this time when the recession has started off, etc., is actually a good time to start investing in terms of your professional skills and education, so that when the jobs start flowing into the market, you are at the front line to go and grab it.
Correct, correct. Thanks, guys. And another question that we've got is when should I take the GMAT and how much time should I have to prepare the applications? It again, like everything in MBA, it depends. If you have not taken the GMAT yet and are scheduled to take it in the next 15 days or so, say somewhere by the 10th or 12th of February, oh sorry, December, focus all your energies on that, GMAT or GRE, right? And then start the application process. Typically, about a month to 45 days is the ideal time to prepare applications. And as we said, it is important to introspect. There are a number of reviews that will happen with either your an alum or a adcom or the admissions consultants or anybody you go to, right? So you have to give it time. However, if you're not ready with your preparation on GMAT or GRE and you're taking it the fag end of December, make sure you start the process of applications now and go in parallel. And say about a week before the exam, stop the admissions, the application bit, and focus on the test itself, because you need to have a basic structure in place before you actually take the test, so that when the scores come in and a possibility of a reattempt is there, you're not starting from scratch then. So it's important to time it really well. Obviously, the fact of taking the test is when you're absolutely ready. So don't rush into it as well, but move or pivot your application preparation around that. So that's what I would say. Other question, Piyush, for you specifically has come in that uh, I'm an Indian IT male, an engineer, and score of 670. It's a profile specific thing, and no other spikes, so to speak. So, do I stand a chance to get into ISB? And it's a typical question in terms of the majority of the class is engineers, and typically you differentiate through your experience or your GMAT score. In this case, what would your thoughts be?
Right. So as Manan said, it depends. Now breaking it down in terms of what it depends on is in terms of uh, first the bad news. Okay, so in terms of the general, the GMAT scores are looked at in terms of cohorts. So you basically need to have a high GMAT score in terms of your experience cohort. Now, inevitably, the IT engineer population tends to have like higher GMAT scores, higher GRE scores as well. So the bad news is that. Now, the good news is, if you have diverse experience that differentiate you in terms of the first essay, remember that what's the one trait that adds value to ISB that you have. So in terms of experience that you've in IT, of course, we say IT, but IT is attached to an industry, right? So basically, have you had exposure to retail? Have you had exposure to e-com? Have you had exposure to fintech? Have you had exposure to maybe I've seen like profiles that have had exposure to Hollywood. They were providing IT services to Paramount. So something interesting there. Is there an interesting project that you worked on? Is there a different angle to your experience that you can bring to the application that catches the readers, the adcom's attention? So focus on that. So the reason that you're applying to ISB is, of course, you want to make the next leap to your career. However, if the experience bit, which Manan pointed out, I think if you 5 years in a single particular service or an industry, it will be difficult to make a horizontal change. However, it might be easier to make like a vertical leap. That is, if you say that, for example, I've come from a IT background, and the next step that I'm looking forward is maybe a technical program manager, a project leader, or a product role, then it's easier. However, you do stand a chance. However, I would add that if you have a chance to retake your GMAT, do take it. But if, for example, if the application is due just around the corner, give yourself a shot. Bring forward points in your application that might differentiate you from this cohort that you're applying from. uh, and do have that strong essay. Make sure that you obsess over each line in the essay in this case, because uh, things that you cannot, this is one thing apart from your GMAT, the last thing before the application that you can work hard on and improve on. So make sure that you obsess over each line, make sure that it's structured correctly, you preserve real estate, make sure that you use impactful language, uh, uh, to the extent, obsess over each space and comma, I would say. In this case, in your special case, please make sure your essays are impactful.
Thanks. And in general, I think what I would say is if you've got a score, if you sort of started on your application and you feel it's not enough for ISB, or somebody tells you that, still apply. All right. Again, it's a life philosophy. If you don't apply, you're for sure not getting through, and if you apply, you might get through. And ISB, as we said, does not take reapplicants in a negative fashion. So there is a lot more opportunity to expand on that, as say next year, whether it's the score, whether it's the profile or anything else. So do apply, because that process of introspection is a nice one, and it'll tell you a lot more about what you can do, and what you want actually out of a B school, or in your career in general. So we'll take one more question, which has come in, that is experience of more than 8 years a drawback for ISB in terms of opportunities? How will an experience of more than 8 years awarded or rewarded? The person has a GMAT score of 730. So what I will say is that you are competing in a different bucket. It's not as if a 8 year experienced person will not be pegged against a 2 year or a 3 year experienced person in terms of interviews to get into ISB, or in placements as well. There are different type of jobs which come in. Having said that, at least this year, the number of people with 8+ years of experience at ISB is roughly around 50. So that's also a function of number of people applying. It's not just the school's preference. The other thing that you can do is, yes, you stand a good chance. Try exploring other schools such as IIMs, where you get an equal amount of peer group, or look at other Asia Pac schools such as NUS or NTU, because there the average experience resonates with what you currently have in some sense. Okay, one question has come in: is GRE score between 320 315 and 320 fine? It depends. We'll have to know more Prakriti about your profile and what you have on the plate, and before answering that. So feel free to reach out to us. I've mentioned those links here, and do that. So we'll wrap up now. Any final thoughts from you, Ayushi, before we wrap up?
Just to keep in mind, ISB is a school that looks at your complete profile. It is not just one GMAT, not just one academic score, or not just one essay. So try to give your best shot at everything possible, and I think someone had mentioned that they feel that they don't have a spike in their resume. It usually feels so because you're not introspected enough. I personally feel that you will be able to get some spike, or maybe talk to alums and, just have a lot of rounds of discussion and something will come up which you didn't think of. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on it.
Thanks, Ayushi. And I think, yeah, that's a great point about spikes, because we as humans tend to undermine our own achievements. So look at it from somebody else's perspective and you'll realize how good or bad that achievement is. Piyush?
Yeah. So rightly said. I mean, at times we do see candidates across that they feel that, hey, their profile is banal. It's basically it's very mellow. However, if you introspect enough, you might come up with that specific examples that may not, like, that shows the trend towards, or all the ingredients of making like a successful MBA graduate. So what ISB will look for is the ingredients. So if you show scope of an eagerness to learn and ingredients towards achieving your short term and long term goals, ISB does look into it. They go through the essays very thoroughly. They go through your profile very thoroughly. Just make sure that you hit the right notes and highlight it at the right forums within the application, so that they know. But do do a fair bit of research and introspection before you put pen to paper. That's kind of my tip.
Thank you. I think my closing comment will be, first, introspect whether you want to get to ISB or not. Because, as I said, it is the fact is the school is choosing you, but you're choosing the school as well. So whether it's the right fit or not, it is very important. So reach out to people who have gone through the journey, in terms of either alums who have graduated, or current students who are experiencing that journey, whether it's the right fit for you or not, because there are certain traits or things that school offers which might not resonate with what you want to get into, right? Yes, an ISB MBA degree is coveted, it's great, but it is something that, is it for you or not, is what you have to decide. Second thing is, when you get to the application process, again, the alums become your source of uh, introspection, source of review, source of improvement, because ultimately they are the ones assessing you in the interview, and the current students are also reviewing your essays, by the way, as we speak, right? So it is ISB faces a lot of emphasis on the people who are into the program, so people who have been in your shoes before. So do reach out to them and ask questions about the profile, get your reviews done, get your mock interviews done, and then go ahead and apply, and get through. So those will be my 2 cents. Thank you, Ayushi. Thank you so much, Piyush, for joining us and taking out time on a Saturday. And thank you everybody else for joining. Do feel free to reach out to us in case you need uh, uh, help with ISB application essays, or get your profile evaluated, or any other query that you might have with ISB. So feel free to reach out, and have a good rest of the evening, and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Manan. Thanks, everyone.